Hello and welcome to another video tutorial. This one is for the Archetype machine on Hack the Box within the starting point area, so it's the more beginner friendly boxes. My name is Adrian. I have recently changed careers into becoming a pen tester, so I'm no expert. If I get something wrong, I do apologise. I feel that even though there are a lot of good video tutorials already out there on YouTube for these machines, I don't think there are many that go into a very high level of depth. So I'm going to be creating my video tutorials, this one included, to cater for people who are like me, who are totally new to pen testing, totally new to Kali Linux, and they may need some extra help, some extra guidance and extra explaining of things. So my video tutorials kind of last about an hour or so, even though it's only hacking one box, because I like to, pause the footage, zoom the camera in and just explain things in detail. Feel free to skip ahead to the point in the video that you think will highlight the problem that you're having, or use it all the way through from beginning to end, and if you follow along exactly the same as me, you should be fine. Just to point out that I'm using VirtualBox, which you can easily download. If you Google VirtualBox and download that software, and then VirtualBox acts as your hypervisor, and you can install other OSs. So I'm using Windows 10, but installed on that I have another virtual machine, Kali Linux, which I've used with the VirtualBox to run, and this is the initial setup. So it's just been installed. It's a clean, fresh install. As soon as I installed it, I created a snapshot. So you can see in the top left it says snapshot 1. That was the first snapshot of the OS that I made once it was installed, so that I could always revert back to this. So anything we need to install, like InPacket or Sublime, I'm going to assume you haven't got those installed, and you can install those because they by default are not installed on Kali Linux. So yeah, if you're having trouble with a particular thing, it's not working, try resetting your virtual machine to scratch and then follow along with the video. So let's get in. So the first thing you're going to do is open up Terminal using this button, and if you click and drag the top of the window to the right or the left of the screen, you can snap it so that it is takes up half the screen. And if you want to quickly open up new tabs, like I've just done, you can hold Control, Shift and press T to open up a new tab, or alternatively just click on File and then there'll be an option to open a new tab. Get a few of these ready. Next we need to open up Firefox, so we're going to click on the little dragon icon. We're going to type in Firefox to quickly find the app. Press enter or click on Firefox, wait for it to load. We're going to click and drag this window, snap it to the other half of the screen, and we're going to go to the website Hack the Box and go ahead, sign in. If you need to create an account. If it's half screen like this, it's a bit harder to find the sign in button, but top right, these three bars, and then down here your cookies may have popped up, to get rid of that, and then down there the white button, sign in, and then here log into the new Hack the Box platform, that button, use that because it'll take you to the updated version, which I just find is much more crisp and generally easier to manage. So once you've signed in using your credentials, you're going to click on the starting point tab, which is on the left down here, fourth one down, and then starting point. You probably already know this anyway, and then we're going to click on Archetype for today. These are the free ones. The ones that haven't been ticked yet are the ones you have to pay for to have access to. So we're going to click on Archetype and we're going to join the machine. Now it will give us an IP address for this machine, but we can't access it unless we are in the virtual private network. So we're going to click on the red button, then click on starting point, then click on open VPN, and then download VPN. Make sure you click on the starting point one, and then we're going to click save file instead of open. Click OK, and it's going to hopefully download and save that file to your home downloads folder. So by default you're already in home. My username is called Kali, and then within that you've got documents and desktop and things. It's going to be in the downloads one by default. I'm just going to click accept because someone wants to reset and it doesn't affect me at the moment. So I'm going to change directory. I'm going to use the tilde, then slash, then downloads. So the tilde sign you can access by holding shift and pressing the button next to the enter button on your keyboard, or for me, because the keyboard variation is different in Kali, I think it's the US version keyboard, you're going to have to hold down shift and press the button that is underneath escape to the left of 1 and above the tab. It's kind of like the console key, I think. The console opens up the console sometimes. Yeah, so the tilde will be put over there instead. And then we're going to use ls, which just means list. If you ever want to see what's in that current working directory that you're in, what items are in there, what directories are in there, you use ls. And to see any hidden things, you can use ls space and then tac all, or dash, not all, sorry, tac a or dash a, means the same thing. You could do a l, I think, to list. I can't remember what AL does now, it's off my head, but usually I do ls, then a space, and then tac AL, maybe to see permissions. I can't remember exactly, but either way, if you ls once you're in the downloads directory, you should see that you have your VPN file, but it will just be called starting point and then your username, whatever your username is, .ovpn. Next we're going to type in sudo and then open a VPN is the command, and then the name of the file. You'll notice here I didn't need to type in the whole name of the file, I just typed in st and then I pressed tab, which is known as tab auto completion. This shell, this particular command line interface that I'm using here, the terminal, does have little shortcuts and things like that where you can press tab to auto complete, or you can press up and down arrow keys to cycle through console history. Sometimes some shells don't do that, especially once you are hacking and using remote shells. You'll find that when you press something like that, you get like a strange like bracket, up arrow, A, close bracket kind of thing. When you press like an arrow, a tab auto complete as well. It gives you some kind of strange input and doesn't actually work. So just keep in mind that this doesn't always work, but you can when you have good shells. You can use little shortcuts like this. So once you press S, you can press tab, and because there's only one file in this folder, the downloads folder, there's only one file with S. It's unique already, so when you press tab autocomplete there's only one option and it picks that. And this shell's really good because if there's more than one option, it will display all the options and you can kind of cycle through those by pressing the tab button a few times, then pressing enter. So keep in mind, you don't always have to type in the whole thing, you can just use keyboard shortcuts like tab autocomplete. Sudo is needed to get administrator privileges, and as you'll see in a moment, because it's the first time we've run the sudo command, the OS is going to tell us just take responsibility because you are having privilege, full privileges to do anything you want. So you just need to put your password in after sudo, and then the OS kind of remembers your password for a few minutes, and then sometimes you'll notice you need to do sudo again and it'll ask for your password again, and that's totally normal. Just put your password in, it's just checking it's still you accessing the commands. And then OpenVPN is going to get us connected to the internal network on which 10.10.10.27 the Archetype machine is located. So once you've done this, press enter. So whatever password you use to sign in, it's the same password really to access the sudo privileges, and then make sure you see at the bottom initialization sequence completed, and then you know the VPN set up. Quickly move over to a new tab and just check you have the turn 0 interface, and it's going to give you the IP address there. For me it's 10.10.14.140, but for you it will be different probably. And the next thing we're going to do is open up Google, open up a new tab in Firefox and search for Sublime. Just type in Sublime and it'll probably be the first link there. You can use other text editors like V or Vim, but I like to use Sublime as it's a little bit more straightforward and simple to use. So once we're on the website, we're going to click on this blue button on the left, and then we're going to scroll down a little. Just to install it, there's a few things to make sure we have ready. We're going to copy this and then we're going to paste it into our terminal and press enter to run the command. Remember that to paste into terminal, you have to hold Control and Shift, so hold those two buttons down, they're right by each other, and then press V. Most of the time you hold Control and press C to copy, and then you hold Control and press V to paste, but terminal uses Control C for like cancelling out of things. And I think you see me later accidentally cancel out something I didn't want to because I was trying to copy and I made an error. So yeah, so copy from the website just using Control C, or you can highlight the text and then you can right click and click copy. Once you've got it into your clipboard, you've copied it, you then need to click back into terminal, and then there is no right click, so you have to do Control Shift and V. There maybe is at the top next to file like edit, and there might be the option to paste there, but it's much quicker to just press Control Shift and V to paste the text. Once you've done that, press enter, and it might ask for the password again because you've used sudo again. Just type your password in again, that's fine. You know it's worked if you see something that you see on the screen here. I'm not sure if there was a mistake though, because it says apt key is deprecated. It worked regardless, but just in case Sublime isn't going to work, let's just put these dependencies in. Really, these things we're going to do to make sure that Sublime does work. So we're going to repeat this copy and paste process with these other options. So make sure you take this line of code as well. Underneath, ensure apt is set up to work with HTTPS sources. Copy that, paste that into terminal and press enter. It might give you some warning signs again, maybe it's a little bit outdated. We'll do the same with this code to download to tee up the stable command so it's ready to download. And then we're going to do sudo apt-get update, just make sure that everything's up to date. And finally, sudo apt-get install Sublime Text. Now I haven't tried it, but you can maybe go to sudo apt-get install Sublime Text straight away and just put that in on its own, and you might be able to get everything working fine. You might not need all this preliminary code getting these things ready, but regardless, Sublime worked. So all we want is Sublime to be downloaded so that we can use it as like a notepad type of functionality, so we can copy and paste things in that we need, which will come in rather invaluable later on. And if you enlarge the Firefox screen, you can see there's a button here called walkthroughs, and all the starting point machines have these PDF walkthroughs, and underneath there's other people's walkthroughs that has been submitted by users. We can open up the PDF and say thank you to Agree55 for creating the machine, and I think for writing this PDF walkthrough. So we're going to use this as like a base for how we're going to go about tackling the machine. And first up is enumeration, which is kind of like the second major phase. The first major phase of hacking would be like footprinting, getting email addresses, DNS records and things. And after footprinting, you would then go on to enumerate the system via port scanning, SMB scanning, seeing if you can access SSH, things like that. So to open up Sublime, you're going to use, once it's downloaded, subl subl. Type that in, it will open up Sublime, and then you can see I've opened a few tabs here. You can do that easily by holding Control and pressing N for new. And get 3 or 4 tabs up, ready and open. And then I'm going to save the tabs. Each individual tab acts as an individual file. So when you go to save one of the tabs, it's like you're saving a file, and this will pop up. I used Control S to save, but you can easily click File and then Save. And I'm just going to name the first tab 10.10.10.27 Archetype. Well, I just named it 10.10.10.27, just so I remember the name of the IP address of the machine we're attacking. And then I'm just going to just double check that our IP address is 10.10.14.140. Yes, it is on the VPN connection. So I'm going to call my second subl tab 10.10.14.140, but you call it whatever VPN IP address you've been given, which will be probably slightly different. I think it'll still be on the .14 kind of subnet, but then the .140 will be different probably. And then finally, the third tab I'm just going to call useful commands, and in there we're going to use that later to copy and paste in some code that we're going to need to look through and just tweak a little bit and things. And then I'll just create a line to divide different commands, and then just copy and paste that line. So I can just neaten up my notes really. Think of it as like a new page. or a new bookmark tab. So I'm going to use this first tab to just put in like port scanning results and the user flag and system flag later on. So I'm just calling this first section nmap results, because the first thing to do in the enumeration phase is to probably find out what hosts are online. In this case, we're only attacking one host, 10.10.10.27. Once we know what hosts are online in the IP range, we're going to then start port scanning the hosts that we think are valuable machines. So in this case, we're just going to port scan the one of them. We're going to use nmap 10.10.10.27 and then -f, which means fast or fewer, because I think it only scans the most 100 common ports, so it's a little bit quicker, because I think normally by default it scans the 1,000 most common ports. And we can see here that there are 4 services that seem to be open. 135, 139, 445 and 1433 are the port numbers for the services, and they're all TCP. Here we've got an interesting one. This one I think might be SMB, the 135 or the 139 is NetBIOS. That's quite interesting as well, and also it looks like we've got an SQL type server on 1433. 445 might be domain, Microsoft DS domain servers. So I'm just going to copy and paste those results into our notes, because if it was a real hack, we'd have to maybe do a bit of research on these if we didn't know about them already. Do a bit of research on these ports and see what vulnerabilities they're open to. We're going to use nmap again, but this time we're going to do -sc -sv -p for ports, and then just put the ports that we're going to focus on. We only need the scan to focus on those 4 ports. We can separate those with a comma. No spaces, just a comma. SC stands for like scripts. I think it's just going to run like default scripts to see what could possibly be exploited, or SV will do that. And I think SV looks for vulnerabilities. SC might just be the type of connect. It might be a full open connect scan actually, but the SV is, I think the V stands for vulnerabilities, and it will just kind of enumerate what it can. And here, for example, it's found a little bit more information based on the SQL port, like we know the computer name, domain name, just archetype, but we can see the product version, which might be able to lead to some vulnerabilities. And we can 100% say now it's probably, 100% probably say it's going to be a Windows, but it tells us it's Windows anyway on the Hack the Box website. Excuse me. And here we can see it's got SMB discover. Yeah, we found a server message block, and it looks like we can possibly access that if it doesn't have a password, if it allows anonymous access. But you can see the NetBIOS name of the machine, Archetype, but sometimes in a real hack it may be different. And yeah, everything else there isn't majorly useful, but regardless, I'm just going to copy and paste all this into my Sublime notes, just so I don't lose it if I were to lose this output in this tab. So if the SMB is available, we can try and use a tool called SMB client, which will be installed on Kali Linux by default. You know that because when you type in SMB client, it stays green, so we know that Kali recognizes that command. And then we're going to put in the IP address 10.10.10.27, and for some reason, which I'm not entirely sure, you need 4 slashes in front of it and 2 slashes at the end. I'm not sure if the 2 at the end are necessary, but I think the 4 slashes in front are necessary. But try it without those slashes. And we're going to do TAC L, which means to list what's in there. And it's going to ask for a password, so it is password protected, but the password is nothing, so it allows anonymous access. Because I just pressed enter when it asked for the password, so the password is literally nothing. And if you wanted to keep checking what was in there and you didn't want to keep putting the password in, you could tack in -n, which means no password. So when it asks for it, just automatically enter for me, nothing. So it doesn't even ask for the password. We need to put that in front of the -l, sorry, so make sure it's in the right order. And there we can see there are 4 shares: admin, backups, C and IPC. IPC is a fairly common one, I think you'll see that a lot. So now that we know what exists within the SMB for 10.10.10 10.27. We can look in those directly, possibly by typing in the name of the share at the end, but unfortunately this one is password protected, so we can't access the admin one. I'd try tac n. Will we get the same result? Oh no, I think I'm going to do a different one. I'm going to try, yeah, so I tried C. Tac n just means don't ask for a password. The password's nothing, but no, there is a password there. Don't know what it is yet. And then tac n for IPC. And IPC seems to not have a password to access it. So if we type help here, we can see that we do have some commands that we could try. LCD, local change directory, but I think that's only changing our machine directory. So at the moment we're in like the home folder, because you can see next to Kali at Kali there's a tilde sign, which means you're just in the standard home folder. So we don't really need to use LCD. PWD stands for print working directory, and it just shows us where we are, and it confirms we're in the 10.10.10.27 /IPC folder. And then I thought I'd try doing exclamation mark commands, but I think that's more doing commands on the local machine, as I found out fairly quickly here. So we don't need to do exclamation mark cd documents or whatever, because there's no need for us to change our local working directory, really. I mean, we could if we wanted to specify where when we do a download in a minute, when we try and get a file, when we download it to our machine from the SMB, we can probably specify where we want to download it to by being in a particular folder on our local machine, but we don't really need to mess around with it, to be honest, because we can just download it and then use the mv command to move it. So I'm just checking through all the commands that SMB has on offer, seeing which ones might be useful. dir and ls are there, which stands for dir is the Windows version of ls for list, so it's like what's in the directory. But as you can see, these are hidden behind a privilege requirement, so it's not going to let you do that. So I thought I'd exit and try again, but we'll go to the fourth one, backups. Is backups protected with a password? Looks like it isn't. We can see we're in straight away, and we can see that the dir command does not require privileges, so we can see what's in there. There's only one file, prod.dtsconfig. So we're going to hopefully download that straight away. Now I tried to locally change my working directory to this folder called Archetype, but to be honest, you don't need to do this. And I did PWD and I could see that it didn't work. I was still within home Kali, so I just went straight to use the get command. So yeah, don't worry about changing your local directory. We're going to use get, which you can see is one of the available commands when you are using an SMB shell, you could call it, the SMB command line interface. So we're going to use get, which basically means download and save it, which is quite good, quite nice. You can quickly just get that command. I was wondering if the cat command was there, but I don't think I could see it. But if we get it, we can then cat it out and see what's in it. You'll see what I mean by cat in a minute if you're not sure. So we're going to type in get, then the exact name of the file, and if it works, it will say this getting file, blah blah. And then if you change to a new terminal tab, you can see you have that file now, probably within the standard folder that you're in, the home folder. And then we can use the mv prod.dtsconfig, then a space, and then tilde documents archetype. But you can just put it in your documents, you don't have to put it in a specific folder. I created a specific folder for this, and we can see we've got those two Sublime files that are tabbed open on the left, and now we have the prod.dts. Now we can use the cat command, which means catenate, which basically means give me all the output all the text onto the screen for me. But then I realised I can also open it in Subble, which is probably better, so I just opened it in Subble instead, using Subble and then the name of the file. But if you did cat command, this would just show up in the terminal, so there's no real difference. And just scanning through, is there any useful information? We do find some useful information indeed. We find the password, which is like megacore 123, but obviously there's some capital letters and numbers in place of letters, and then we find user ID is archetype slash svq, what was it, svl underscore sq svc. Hang on, I'll type it in a second. So I'm just putting this in a new kind of area. Oops, excuse me. In a new area within my first tab, because it's not port scan results, it's something else. So I called this area useful credentials, SMB client, just remember where I got it from, and the password. Then I'm going to just put the user ID on a new line. I don't like to use equals like that, I like to use a colon. So the username is SQL underscore SVC. Okay, that's the username. Archetype slash is the domain name, I believe, or the machine name. So the user is SQL underscore SVC at the domain archetype using the password megacore123. So we're going to go to a new terminal tab. And now that we are pretty sure there's an SQL server, thanks to our nmap results, and thanks to the fact that this user is called SQL, we can probably access SQL using these credentials, hopefully. So that's what we're going to try. We're going to use a tool called msqlclient.py, which is a Python script. However, by default, this will not be installed on your Kali Linux virtual machine. Instead, we're going to need to download a suite of useful utilities called Impacket, which is going to be found on GitHub. So we're going to, first off, to download Impacket, we're going to do sudo apt install and then python 3 pip, because we'll need to make sure that we can download the Python command, the Python script, sorry. And I think you need python 3 -pip installed first of all, because it's some kind of Python installer, I think. But it's a dependency that we're going to need anyway. So first off, sudo apt install python 3 pip. Then we're going to sudo git clone basically copy, https colon, and then if I remember it's / github.com/secureauth / and then it might be secureauth corp, sorry, then /impacket. Finally, it's a .git file. That's going to copy that to our home directory. But I wanted it in my documents area, in a specific folder I'd created. Again, it doesn't matter where you place it really. So first off, I'll just change directory documents and then decided to download it into the documents instead. But you can just download it anywhere you want, and then you can see you have your Impacket folder. It's probably a good idea to download and save it into the root opt folder, which I think I do move it in a second. I'll move it in a bit. So if we change directory to Impacket and just ls what's in there, and there's my ls tac al, we can see we've got what permissions are available. We're going to need to access requirements.txt, but you can see here it only has read and write for the root, read for the user, and read for the group, I think, for the RW, R and R. So it means that we can't actually execute it at the moment. So we're going to change the requirements using chmod. We're going to add x, so we're going to add execution for the requirements.txt. So it looks like sudo chmod plus x and then requirements.txt. And now if you look, it's gone like a light green, which I think means it's executable, and we've given permission for the root or the owner of the file, any other user, and the group to be able to execute it. I think the first X might be sudo privileges. Either way, we can run the requirements.txt now. So now we're going to use pip3, sudo pip3 install, and then tac r requirements.txt just to make sure everything is installed that needs to be for Impacket to work. And as you can see here, everything was already required. It didn't need anything new. Or requirements already satisfied, which I think means we already have the downloadable things in our Kali Linux for Impacket to work smoothly. But just in case, make sure you run that. Now we're going to do sudo python 3. We can use Python, and we're going to install the file. And to do this, we need to make sure that we are currently working in the inpacket folder, which you can see here because there's a tilde / document / inpacket, so I know I'm in the folder. And then we can do sudo python 3, then it's the full stop dash and then setup.py and then install. And if you run that command, you'll see in a second it will go through and it will quickly verbose out all the things it's doing, getting inpacket set up really. Unpacking it and installing it ready for us to use so that we can use all of its different scripts and things, and it should all work nice and smoothly. And once that is done, we're going to type in sudo update db. This is mostly used, I think, for the locate command. So if you want to put in locate inpacket, there you go, it shows you all the tools to do with inpacket. But if you don't update db first and then you do locate, it won't find anything that's been installed since the last time you did update db. So anytime you install something new, you might want to type in update db, so that if you wanted to locate it using the locate command at a later point, it will be in the database for it to find via the locate command, if that makes sense. Not important anyway, too much. And we're going to change directory. I just moved my inpacket to the opt folder, which you can do if you want to, you don't have to, but I think it just keeps it in a place which is most optimal, so to speak, opt. I'm not sure I read that somewhere there to try and put inpacket into the opt. Anyway, if you go to a new terminal tab and type in mssqlclient.py, you'll notice it goes green now, which means that it is recognized by the operating system. And we can tack H just to bring up this help menu if we are so inclined. So what we need to type in is mssqlclient.py, and then we're going to put in the IP address, I do believe. Not yet. I'm going to put in the domain and the username first, then a colon, which will separate the username from the password. Remember, we got these from the SMB client, rummaging around in that backup share area. And then we do not at but a finger space, I think 10.10.10.27. And then I was trying to remember if it, because sometimes this doesn't work, because you kind of have to do this kind of slash, not only the backslash, it needs kind of like a forward slash as well. And I was trying to remember if you needed at, and I think yes, you needed at, not a finger space actually. But I'll have the correct command up on the screen when I finally arrive at it. You can see here I'm kind of just debugging what was the right command, because trying to remember what it was. So the user is SQL_SVC. Archetype is the domain name, I do believe. But you can see here it kept failing for some reason, even though I'm pretty sure that the password was correct. So I thought I'd try like this, 1/forward, 1/back, maybe getting rid of the password, just checking can we gain access, and here it looks like we successfully gain access, but we need the password now. So it prompts us for the password, so it's that like make a core thing, copy and pasted it, but still giving me this error for some reason. I wasn't sure why now. I was a bit confused. I think I referred to my notes, but my notes are on the other monitor that I have, so they won't appear on the screen. So I might fast forward this part of the video until I get the correct command. I'll just see if this is the correct one now. No, this won't be correct. You definitely don't need to put it the other way. I think I was going to put it the other way around. Username first slash domain. That's definitely not going to work, I think. And then I did the password, colon password, but that's definitely not going to work. Oh, nearly what kind of worked. I don't know. It shouldn't work though. I'm pretty sure it's Archetype comes first, even with the forward slash and the backslash. It's not going to work. So I'm just going to skip the video ahead a little bit until I got the right command. And here it is. It is. I think what I was doing before was fine, but just forgot to do this tack Windows on the end of it, which you'll see now. So dash Windows, dash auth you can do, but you don't have to. It just needs at least the dash Windows. And then we are in the SQL server. First thing we can type in is help, just to give us a quick rundown of some basic commands. And we want to see if we can enable the XP command shell, which allows us to basically have a little shell within the SQL server, so we can run some commands. And if it says change from 1 to 1, then that means nothing's really changed. That means someone's already gone in to Archetype, a different user on Hack the Box, and they've done this already, I believe. So if it says from 1 to 1, you don't need to type in reconfigure. I think you can, and I don't think it'll make a difference. Because someone else has already gone in there and allowed it to be run with our user credentials. And this is what I think I did to show you that you can just as easily turn it off again. So if you type in disable XP command shell with the underscores, it'll now show 1 to 0, and then run reconfigure. So just type in reconfigure, and then if we do sp configure to just show us, we can see here XP command shell's gone, and show advanced options. There's a 0, then a 1, then a 0, then a 0. Whereas before it said a 1, a 1, and a 1. So it definitely, has gone back to that default setting. And I think I might have done that for everybody who was currently on. So I quickly changed it back. And this is what you might see, 0 to 1. That just means it hasn't been done yet. And if it hasn't been done yet, then just type in reconfigure, and you can get it back working for yourself and for everyone else who is currently also attacking this box. So if the machine gets reset in Hack the Box and you notice, machine reset, you're going to have to just make sure when you're on this SQL server that you type in enable XP CMD shell, and you change it from it changes from 0 to 1 and it stays a 1, and then you type in reconfigure to just update that. And then we're going to do, this was probably the trickiest part of the video, well, in a moment coming up. I'll just check in XP command shell. Is it working? Yes, it's working. It gives us the output from the input. Who am I? The output is Archetype slash SQL SVC. So we're on the domain Archetype. I think it's domain. You might say computer, PC, system. I think it's domain. But either way, the username is SQL_SVC. And then null, I think, just means it's the end of the commands coming back to us from the shell. So it's kind of like the SQL server communicating to the XP application. And here I'm just going to I'll put the my notes on the screen, because this code is on the walkthrough PDF that we looked at earlier, that you can access through the walkthrough tab, and there's a whole walkthrough there, kind of like the base of what we're going to do. Here it is, look. But when you copy this, it's going to do you see how there's like blue highlighted text, that are the letters that are highlighting, but in between the blue there's like white gaps? I do believe those are finger spaces, keyboard spaces. But when you copy and paste this, you can see it doesn't give us the gaps. So I've had to put the gap in there after $client gap equals gap new object, and there should be a gap between object and system. So this is code. I think it's Python script, and it's going to be a malicious code that we're going to upload to the SQL server. It's going to run it thanks to the execution function of the command XP command shell, CMD shell. It's going to run it, and as it runs, it's going to kick open a callback to our machine, a reverse. It's a reverse shell. But you want to go through, you want to copy and paste it into Sublime, and you want to go through and just make sure that you've got it pretty much correct. I did experiment a little bit and try to see what was the bare minimum of keyboard spaces that we needed for the code to work, and I couldn't quite figure out what it was the bare minimum. So I'm not sure if you're going to need every single finger space or whether it's just a couple that are needing it, like a key 1 or 2 where it has to have a finger space. I'm not entirely sure, but I've just gone through. I'll copy and paste it into Word first, just so I can see what I was doing a bit easier, and so that I'm going to copy and paste this text into the video description, or maybe in a comment. I think I'll put it in a comment, and I'm going to use the correct finger spaces, so hopefully you can copy and paste it quicker from my comment on the YouTube video straight into your Sublime. Just check it has copy and pasted over with the correct finger spaces. Keep in mind there's a tricky one between the hash sign. There's a hash sign after it says send back, then plus, then open inverted comma, hash sign, then a space, then a closing inverted comma. Now it's not blue on the highlighted text, but just double check that you've got a finger space after that hash sign, and then you want to make sure that you change the IP address. So for me it would be 10.10.14.140 because that's my IP on my VPN interface 210, and then the port number, they've kept it as 443, the author of the PDF. You can keep it as 443. I just kind of by default I always go to quad 4 because it's easiest for me to remember, quad 4s, 4/4s. But any port, you can use any port number there really, as long as it's not already in use, which you probably won't be being client, and it has to be a legal number. So obviously no port number that wouldn't be in existence would work, as long as you got a port number that's in existence. And then we're going to use Control S to save that as shell1. You can save it as anything, shell dot, but make sure it's got the .ps1 after it, so I've just called it shell.ps1. And then we're going to use Python 3 to create a mini server, which I think is what the -m is for mini. That will create the server on our loopback address 0.0.0.0. Which basically just means us. And then we're going to do UFW. I don't think this is necessary, but we'll do it anyway just in case. You'll see here, once you type in UFW, it says you haven't got it, it's red, but it recognizes it as like you can install it. But then there's a capital N in the brackets, which means no, so you can't just press enter because the default is the capital letter. So the default is to not do it. You want to press Y and then press enter, which means yes, I will, please do it. And it tells you sudo apt install UFW and then runs it after you've provided your sudo password, and then it's installed. I think this stands for like a firewall, universal firewall, something firewall, I can't remember now, unified firewall. Anyway, we're going to type in UFW. So can we allow please from 10.10.10.27 protocol TCP to any port on our machine basically, and any port, but we're looking for 80 and 443. Now I think I should have typed in 4444 quad 4s, and you can just see here once you've put the rule in, if you try and do it again and it says you can't do it skipping because it's already been done, then you know it's not going to work. But I totally forgot to use my port numbers, which was 4444. Yeah, I'm just going to say quad 4s now because I forget how many I've said. So I remembered here that my netcat needs to be listening on port quad 4s because that's what I typed in my shell Python script. But I did forget that the UFW I need to allow port quad 4. So the fact that it runs now and it works without me using the UFW command to allow quad 4 means that it's not necessary, and it probably won't be necessary on your machine. But just in case, we'll just do it because it's no bother, is it, to install the UFW app and to do that nice and quick. Just make sure you allow the port number that you are including in your shell script. Anyway, we're going to take this piece of code from the PDF, copy it and paste it into Sublime, and then we're going to change the port number to, again, whatever your port number is. No, not port number. You can change the IP address, sorry, for whatever your IP address is. So for me, it's 10.10.14.141. So there on the right, sorry, on the left, you can see I've just changed that little bit there. And also make sure you've got a finger space between new object and net.web client. Sometimes again when you copy and paste it over, it doesn't quite have all the finger spaces that you want in there. So what was I doing right now? I was just checking my shell.ps1 had saved okay. And then copying and pasting the line of code. When you copy and paste from Sublime into the terminal, it will never make the mistake of the finger spaces. That's just the PDF thing. From PDF to Sublime or PDF to terminal, it makes the mistake of missing out finger spaces. But when you do it from Sublime into terminal, I've never had a problem with that. So what was I doing now? Trying to see why it hadn't worked. I think it's because I didn't have my shell.ps1 file in my root folder. I think because I moved it to my document that I've got put aside in Documents Archetype. So I'm going to try changing directory first to Documents Archetype and then running the HTTP mini server on port 80, which is the default really. Yeah, so I've ran the mini server now in the same working directory as where the shell.1 ps1 is, but as you can see, when I run on the SQL server, the code, the command that is going to be using XP CMD shell, that's going to use PowerShell within that to call back and download from my computer shell.ps1. You can see it doesn't work, it's not doing it. So I thought, well, maybe unless I specify where the HTTP server is, it's always going to be in the root, which I think is what it is. So because I didn't specify where I wanted the mini server to be set up, it's set up in my home. So I moved the shell.ps1 to my home folder, and when you run it now, did it work? Didn't work again. Let's test. Is the XPCMD shell still available? If you get this, you know you've lost connection, and then if it says machine will be reset, you're gonna have to back out using Control-C and try again. So if you press a command and nothing appears, it just pops up SQL and there's nothing there, it's totally blank, then you've lost connection basically. And then you need to double check it. Can you disconnect using Control-C and then try connect again using those previous commands we used earlier. So I'll just rejoin the SQL and it does work. So it seems to be that I've just lost connection, and the main thing is that you need to have shell.ps1 inside your root folder with your, with the other folders there, desktop, documents, blah blah blah. Make sure it's in that position. Anyway, so we know it's downloaded because it says there had been a connection on the HTTP server, and then on the netcat tab, the one that's been listening on that port number, for me quad 4s, it will say connect to our machine from 10.10.10.27, and then they'll have an ethereal port, ephemeral port number. It's like a big random port number, because we're acting as the server, they're acting as the client. But you can see here it wasn't working for some reason, didn't have any connection. So I had a feeling maybe that even though it had downloaded the shell.ps1 successfully, it hadn't quite run it correctly. So I'm guessing that I'd missed a finger space or something within my code. So I went back and had a double check, because you can see it's thrown up quite a few errors within that code. Yeah, so I went back to Sublime and then I compared my shell.ps1 script, which is this bit here, against the PDF version, And then this piece of code here, I went to Google and I found alternatives for it. So I think the author of this has borrowed it from another person who wrote it. But when I did try to use someone else's code, which seemed quite similar, but it was a little bit different in places, it wouldn't work. It would fetch it, but then it would throw back an error saying, oh no, it wouldn't even fetch it. I think it would just throw back an error saying, oh, I can't remember now. But there was an error somewhere saying that it wouldn't work because it detected malicious code. So I think maybe the author of this machine has configured it so that this particular piece of code is allowed, whereas other pieces of code are flagged up as malicious because obviously they don't want people to do more than they should with these machines. I think you're only supposed to be allowed to do what is required for you. They don't want you to mess it up entirely. But anyway, this script does work fine. This piece of text does work fine as long as it's all written out correctly as in the right syntax, in the right format. So I went through again, and I think I maybe had one. You see where it says type name? I think type name and system text needed a space, and I hadn't put a space between them because type name is at the end of the line, so you don't realise that type name has a finger space before system text, but it does. Type name, then finger space, then system.text. So I copied and pasted that into the shell.ps1. Save over it, just replace the old one because all I did was change one thing. I just put that extra finger keyboard space in, finger space in, and then we'll try again. So set up, restart the netcat again, run that again. So Control C and then run it again. Go back in, put that command in, and yes, we can see the second one now. It's got it, so we know that's worked. Bingo, we know we're connected because you get this pop-up connect to blah blah blah. So let's try again. Who am I? There we go. No, it's working now. We are SQL_SVC. Print working directory. We're currently in Windows /System32. Change directory ... Let's back up. Where are we now? Just Windows. Let's go back up again. CD ... Where are we now? In the root. Good. LSAL. Show me everything. And that doesn't work because I think it only understands dir. It only understands ls. It doesn't understand ls tac al, but it understands dir. There you go. It understands ls as well. So we're just going to stick with that. But that's a bit of a problem because that means we can't show all hidden folders. It's a bit annoying. So cd to users. Let's just go and grab the user flag. Public and SQSVC administrator as well, but you probably wouldn't be allowed access. So I'm just going to go to SQLSVC, and then usually they put the flag in the desktop area. So if we change the desktop, there it is, user.text, and then the cat command I think will work fine. Yeah, there you go, and that is for you to copy and paste in your Sublime, ready to submit to Hack the Box. Now I think in these starting point machines, the user text and the system text for the flags I think are always the same, so you could technically cheat by copying mine if you're having like a real bad day with it and you've maybe given it. I'd say if it doesn't work, come back and try a different day. Then again, if it doesn't work, maybe come back once more, and if on your third attempt you can't seem to get the bloody thing working, then just copy and paste, well, copy from me the flag, because if you've done it 3 times and it's not your fault, just something just doesn't seem to be working, then why not? I know there's another machine Hack the Box. I'm just like, I nearly pulled my hair out because it wasn't our fault, it was the system's fault. Anyway, cd to users, and then in here there's a few hidden folders, but there's one called app data, which I think we're going to use. We're going to look at in a minute. So let's just see, can we go into the administrator folder? You can, by the looks of it. We are in there when we do PDW or PWD, print working directory. But then when you press dir, you don't get anything back. So you're not allowed to view these. They're not viewable for our level account. We need to escalate our privileges to see the accounts in there. So let's go back to SQLSVC. And here there are hidden folders, and then we want the one app data we're going to just snoop around a bit, and then within app data, even though it's hidden, we still are allowed to go into it, and we are allowed to display what's in it. We're going to have a snoop around. Roaming is the name of the folder we're going to go into first. There's a Microsoft folder. Let's go into that. What's in here? Crypto, Internet Explorer, Protect, System Certificates, and Windows. I think the one you want to go into is Windows, but I just had a nosy around into Crypto first. Keys RSA, it sounds good. So I think if this was a real hack, they would probably steal as much information as they could. So I'm not entirely sure what this key is for. What, you know, it's something to do with crypto, apparently. So I'd just, if I was a hacker, I'd copy and paste that. It's part of the spoils of successfully hacking in. So I just demonstrated that, but for our purposes, it's nothing useful. And then that's when I accidentally quit out of the machine, because instead of doing Control and Shift and C, I just did Control and C. So I just had to run everything again. Download that shell.ps1 for the third time after restarting my netcat. The netcat, when it was ready to listen, picked it up, and yeah, it worked again straight away. So the problem must have been that I didn't do the finger space between type name and system.text.ascii, because everything's working fine now. So I must have just missed one little keyboard space. Anyway, so going back into users, SQL_svc. Remember, the app data folder isn't there, and I thought, well, is there a command, a dir command, to show everything? Because ls tac al, which normally shows everything, wasn't working. So let's have a look at the dir command, and it looks like you want dir I think it's tac a, as you can see here. The command displays the names of all files except hidden system files. If you use this parameter without specifying any attributes, the command displays the names of all files, including hidden and system files. So it should be dir and then /a, but it wasn't working. And then I was trying to put D in for directories. Just wanted to see what hidden folders, hidden directories are in there, but it wasn't working. Maybe the shell isn't doesn't have that command installed where you can do dir and then /a, or maybe that just isn't permitted. That command isn't permitted on our level of account. We don't have access to that command. So I've had a quick look through. Is there anything else that kind of shows us all the hidden files? But I think it's just, I think it is a /a. And then I saw here on the left that there was like these square brackets. I was like, oh, it's something to do with square brackets, but I don't think I've ever done that before, like using square brackets within a command. So I actually tested it on my my own system. I did dir, everything appeared. I did dir tac a, well /a, and then I had the hidden stuff as well show up, which kind of confirmed to me that yeah, you need to do dir /a on its own, and if that doesn't work, then it's not our fault. So anyway, you wouldn't really know app data was here unless you just knew about computers in general, but I assume you get used to computers, you'll pick that up in no time. App data is usually hidden within this area, you know, the user's home area. And then within app data we want roaming, within roaming we want Microsoft, and then within Microsoft we want to go to Windows, because in Windows you've got some interesting ones. Here we want PowerShell, I believe. I don't think capital letters matters. Here I just demonstrated the fact that you don't need capital letters, it doesn't matter because it's Windows. If you're on Linux or Unix or whatever, then yeah, capitals is important, but it doesn't matter if you uppercase or lowercase for Windows, so you can just type all these lowercase if you want. I'm just in a force habit now where I like to do capital letters where they are. I like to copy exactly what the file or the folder says. Anyway, PS read line is quite interesting. Within there, we finally stopped digging through folders because we arrived at a file called console host history.txt. And again, it doesn't matter if you have capital letters or not. So I was typing in the wrong thing completely. So I double checked. Why isn't it working? It's console host, not console history. So you can see me type that in now. Excuse me. Underscore history.txt. There you go. And with the cat command, it shows us what's in the file. And literally, there's only really one line in the file. It shows us that a user called administrator has used a password called megacore admin. Interesting. I think I made a mistake again by accidentally backing out. I'm not sure. What was I doing? Yeah, I think I accidentally used Control-C to back out, to quit, as opposed to doing Control-Shift and C. So I was going to skip the video ahead now, because hopefully you know how to arrive at this point. And we're back in. Here we go. We want to use Control-Shift and C to copy. Just be careful, don't make the silly mistakes that I make. And then Control-V in our Sublime to paste. There we go. So we know that the username is administrator, quite simple and default. And we know that the password is megacore underscore 4dm1n exclamation mark exclamation mark. So I'm just making a note of that in my useful credentials area. This is thanks to the console history. So it's like console history, I imagine, it's keeping a record of what has recently been typed into PowerShell. And obviously if you need to use like sudo or whatever, you need to use privileged commands, you need your password. But obviously in the history it keeps a record of what you're typing in. I think that's the gist. Anyway, after snooping around, a hacker will find, hopefully, if the hackers, you know, worth their salt, they're going to find some useful information like this. So this is just simulating you found something useful. We're now going to use psexec, psexec.py, which comes as part of InPacket. So if you've got MS SQL client working earlier, you should get this working. Then we're going to use the username at 10.10.10.27. And here you go, we're straight in. PS I think stands for PowerShell. So basically it's like, I think it's a Linux version of the PS exec tools, which is part of the PS suite, which if you do some Google on that, you'll see it's all about PowerShell. It's a load of PowerShell commands that are quite powerful. And as you can see here, this Linux one kind of takes one of them to allow remote access using the PowerShell command. I could be totally wrong, but I think that's what the gist is. So using psexec to use the username and then provide the password to get a remote PowerShell shell, really, command line interface. And then it's really easy to find the administrator flag now. We're just going to go through the administrator's home profile and home folder, and see that they have a desktop folder, and then within the desktop folder there will be a root.txt, which you can't use cat on root.txt, you have to use type, because PowerShell doesn't understand cat. It's not part of its commands, but it understands type, and that's essentially the same thing. You'll just type out all the text that's in there, which is just the flag. So once you've got those system flags in and now the user flag, that's it, you're all done. So I think the last bit, I was just kind of looking around, seeing what else I could do while I was in here as the administrator. Just doing a bit of exploring, and you can see that the dir/a for all works. And there you go, you can see the app data folder, which is quite common within users' home folders. So it does exist, it is there, it's just that the dir/a command we didn't have privilege to use earlier. So make sure you go back to Hack the Box website and you copy and paste in your flags, your system flag and your user flag. And I hope that you have had fun really hacking this box, and you've enjoyed my video if it has helped in any way. Thank you very much for watching. I plan to make some more videos in the near future. I'm just currently studying at the moment for my certified ethical hacker course credentials, so once I'm certified I will be making more videos in my spare time, but I'll be moving on to the live machines, and I hope that Hack the Box doesn't mind people making videos for those, but I believe the flags in those machines are randomized, so I don't think if you copy and paste someone else's flag it will work anyway. I think you have to get your own flag because they are constantly being updated, but I might be wrong on that. That's just my that's what I think after having a go at a few of those machines in the live area. And they're on rotation, so the video might not be good forever, because if I do a machine and then upload the footage and then that machine gets taken off, you know, my video is not going to be as useful. But I think once it does get taken off the list, I think it's put into a retired area where paid members can access it. So I mean, I don't know, the video might come in handy eventually anyway. Or I might start doing try hack me boxes as well, because I know that there's a lot of free ones on there that are available 24/7 and they don't get taken down. So yeah, don't forget to just Control-C out of your VPN tunnel, disconnect from Hack the Box and all that, and that's it really. All the best.